It's Star Trek Vegas in my rearview mirror. Yep, episode 273 of Trekland Tuesdays, live here with me, Dr. Trekland Nemecek, coming at you from the heart of Trekland virtually for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. Yes, I am on the road still, escaping STLV, Star Trek Vegas, which was a year like no other. And they're all unique. And by now you're probably seeing some of the headlines from the legit stories, seeing a lot of comments from a lot of the fans that were there, the reactions. If you are on YouTube watching later, glad to have you with us. Glad you found us, and you should try us on Tuesday afternoon, sometime when you can. So, STLV, STLV, STLV. I've been talking about some of my personal highlights for the week. They were awesome. Everyone was wondering how the Bally's thing would work out, and being on 2 floors, and I'm not even sure if a lot of the fans attending got that memo ahead of time. Probably not. And I think a lot of the fans gave up and didn't try. It was an evolution. It was a challenge. And just being in a new place had a lot of the regulars off kilter a little bit. What you expect. I remember the first year we were at the Rio after moving from the Hilton. Everything ran 10 minutes slow. But this was a case of having to deal with elevators, even when they added some express elevators. 2 small stages on the top, the secondary D. Kelly, and then the Roddenberry stage, and some of the exhibits, versus the main floor with the main stage and the dealers and photo ops, et cetera, all down there. So that was a thing. I think by the end of the weekend, we decided that maybe as many as from a third to as many as a half never even tried to go upstairs, which is sad because there was a lot of great panels, a lot of great content. I'm not being biased there because that's where I was exclusively between those 2 stages. In fact, I realized at the end of the day that I never set foot out in front or backstage at the main stage. Yes, Conthroat is hanging on with me just a little bit. Travel was crazy. A lot of the folks flying in and driving in from LA, our area, all along the I-15, coming and going. There were flash floods. There were crashes. It was the worst mass driving experience I've heard just from myself and others. But a lot of folks flying in, especially last Wednesday, especially on Southwest, had all kinds of snafus. But we got there. Things were a little crazy. And then, of course, you didn't know things by the back of your hands. So it was a learning experience. But that said, there were so many awesome moments. Now, in my skewed, I hear there were a lot of actors saying a lot of things on a lot of stages. And the big news you all have seen, there wasn't going to be any huge headline because STLV is no longer the licensed convention. So somewhere between their license con, the mission, it'll be Seattle next year. It was Mission Chicago this year. The Reed Pop newly licensed cons are going to be home for a lot of that kind of news, as is San Diego Comic-Con, because it's the big brother of all conventions when you're up alongside the other franchises. And then, of course, we've got Star Trek Day, which is Star Trek's own little bubble, own little platform. And there'll be probably some news coming out of Star Trek Day here in a couple of weeks on September 8th, right? So not a lot. However, it was funny. Jonathan, at one point, someone started to say, so you're directing the crossover episode between Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. And he resurrected his I signed an NDA t-shirt from a few years back when he famously leaked the news that season 1 Discovery was going to be in the Mirror Universe. Yeah, and then he said something about everyone getting, since this was not an official con, and apparently there was no CBS oversight or Paramount oversight, that everyone got a strongly worded letter about not to blab too much about anything upcoming on any of the shows coming, which was funny. So even short of that, though, there was a lot of time. It was a first for a lot of the actors between COVID and pandemic, and when their shows were premiering or when filming might have sabotaged their timing as far as being able to appear. That was a thing. But what still shone through was how much there was to do that was not in the creation grid, that was fan powered. It was either businesses and fans getting together or just simply fan events happening. That, and I think by the first day or two, by Wednesday and Thursday, just seeing how many folks were first timers, which was great. it was a real testament to how fresh the franchise is. So many people were first timers, or they were second timers, and they'd come to the Rio tentatively last fall when we were like in severe COVID mode. And I should say it was only about 7 to 10 days notice, but they were officially a show your vax record and mask all day long on the convention area. Now, at some point, the hotel, the casino, the bar areas, and anybody's private party were not mask mandatory, obviously. So there's just like San Diego Comic-Con, there are times when there's so much happening outside the official con area, you almost wonder what's the point of that, although I'm all for it. And I have a personal stake in staying clean, staying negative. But we're already seeing reports, a lot of folks coming home positive. I mean, it's almost like you can't help it. Thankfully, people all were vaccinated. You know, it's an annoyance, and it could be alarming to anyone around them who either, didn't vax up or were unable to, which is the whole point of the concern and the ongoing caution. A lot of folks who aren't able to take the vaccines and would love to be able to. But that said, there were some close quarters at some of the room parties. People have eventually adapted the Indigo bar was Masquerade, the lobby bar was the I bar, etc. Now I know we've probably got a mix of folks who were there, so I'm going to look forward to seeing in the chat here in a minute about your personal experiences if you were there, or if you were at home and maybe you've got a question about something you saw somebody tweeting, talking about doing streams. But as the week goes on, as the weekend bears on, it's like the free time to say, oh, I think I'll live stream this. You're kind of in a crunch. It kind of goes away as things get more and more manic. And the apex is Saturday, as it usually is at a con, but in a different way. And in most smaller conventions, when Sunday kind of trails off, Sunday at STLV is the frantic time when everything you put off, people are cramming in to do. And yeah, people are looking at dealers for deals, but on my end, that's like, who did I not say hi to? Who did I not say hi to? And get around. But that said, it was cool for me. I finally sat down and had a conversation with Doug Jones for 5 minutes. That was nice. Met some of the actors of some of the newer shows that I hadn't had a chance to. Ava Blackwell, for one, had a nice conversation with her. Anthony Rapp, old timer, said it was nice to just wave at Jonathan and Gates, those kind of people who were right down from us. But of course, my main mission for the weekend was, 2 or 3 or 4-fold. One of them, of course, and if you've seen what we've done here lately, I was really, really, really trying to help Andy Richardson Kindred, with her book excerpt from her upcoming book, Slavery to Star Trek. Gene Kuhn's assistant. I've been trying to help her promote her book, get a list going. She had 250 copies. I know she sold over 150 of them and signed them. She was awesome. She was right down the table from me. I was right between Sandra Pillar, yay Sandra, and Tig Notaro's merch table, and then Andy, which was funny. The highlight in her realm, aside from the constant stream of folks coming by to get books, and the few that wanted me to make sure and grab one, was our hour on stage. It was delightful. And the main goal of the weekend was to get her on a stage, which we weren't able to do at the last second 5 years ago when she was back in country. She's an expat American living in Australia now 50 years. So it's not like she can just trundle down to the nearest local con or Comic-Con. So these trips are far in between, and she is 80 and a force of nature. And we got all of this recorded. Hopefully we're going to get some video up soon. Clips as well as the whole show in some form or fashion. And she was just awesome. And we wound up, we were not the Roddenberry stage, but the D. Kelly stage. So it was one of those 26th floor stages that people had to get themselves up to. And I think the theaters held 200 to 300 in chairs. When she was done Friday night, when our hour was, we had an hour, which was awesome. It was late in the day. I know it was 26th floor. Yes. But we had an hour. She took every advantage of it, was completely enrapturing, and had people in stitches at times, blew their brains a little bit. We wound up with a full house and probably 50 or 60 standing room in the back. So I was so tickled that we finally got her a platform and a show. And then, of course, we were trying to sell her books too, but just to get that direct line to the 60s, Gene Kuhn and Gene and Majel and all the 60s folks that she remembered, as well as, yes, her role in the civil rights movement when Dr. King would come to LA to meet with Malcolm X, even Medgar Evers. He was the first to go, sadly. She knew all three of them. She was Dr. King's driver, has some great photos. But so many, so many Venn diagram circles of life that she's just awesome to sit and listen to. And that's why her book is going to be so special. It's called Code Switching from Slavery to Star Trek, the big book. She just had a small, I should have brought a copy in with me. There are some copies available if you stay tuned to my channels. She has about probably 50 or more left over. We'll see what she and her daughters are going to do about distributing the last of them, because she's here for a while. She doesn't want to take all those books back over to Australia and have to declare them at customs and all. So there'll be some kind of a domestic solution for that. So we're all still recovering from the weekend, but I'll make sure and prompt her to come up with a way for folks to be able to get one who weren't there. I was afraid they'd sell out, and some folks had said, save me one, but there's still probably about 50 copies left. And again, this is the preview of her book coming later. So that was amazing. The other thing that was personally cool to me was, and we'd planned for it to be on stage, on the Roddenberry stage, but things got dominoed. There was a lot more programming than there was stage time for various reasons. We got squeezed off the stage. So never say never. We did it at my booth. We did a Trek Files live. In fact, we did 2 of them. And it was so awesome to have John Champion and Jessica Lynn Verdi, who does the femme fatale voice for our introduction every week. They were just recorded 4 or 5 years ago. But we did it live like an old-time radio show. We have a video of all of that at my table. Andy was the guest for 2 of those. So we're going to be back. I'll spoil the beans. I'll spoil the surprise. We're going to be back from hiatus next week. And Andy is our season premiere, but we've already got 3 or 4 in the can for your enjoyment. So I'm excited about that. But it was so cool to have kind of an audience there at the table and have that ambiance of doing it live, like old-time radio. That was awesome. But all the Voyager documentary, Perk Dinner, 60 folks, some of the actors, that was amazing. So many night events that almost eclipsed what was going on the day for me. Mission Log's Patreon dinner was a huge hit. It was great hanging with the Trek movie bunch. If this sounds like it's everything but the legit script of what the con had in the creation grid, you're kind of right. But it was fun to see. Oh, the other thing was people coming in late and finding their own way, including Dave Blass, who you all have heard me praise to the hilt the last week, the production designer for season 2 and 3 of Picard, the guy who was a fan himself and now very professional, obviously, and the guy who brought back a lot of the golden greats from the Berman era to work on the art department and gained so much good buzz. The Akutas and Doug Drexler and Jeff Mandel and Tim Earls and Ben Betts on video, and I'm leaving people out. Even Rick Sternbach. There were some homage pieces from Rick. That was great, and we found him a place to roost and sign, and he was our guest for our Portal 47 members live dive meetup. Because that's the thing that's special about Star Trek Las Vegas, and this is what I tried to tell all the newbies that were there. Keep your ears open, because there is so much going on that's not just in the program. And my heart goes out to Stephanie Dyson, who's the talent program coordinator. Adam and Gary, Malin and Gary Berman are the nominal longtime owners of Creation and Hands-On, and Stephanie's kind of the number 3. She told me one night that in one day alone, they'd had 31 program changes in one day. I mean, that's like, I'll see your script revision wheel and raise you to insanity levels. I asked her if they used color change pages. Did you guys get to the salmon and the buff tint green pages? It was incredible. They gave up trying to print. First time in history, they gave up trying to print a paper program. It was all on the app. It was all only online and on the app, which was why it was hard to keep up with what's flying by. But that was my advice to the newbies, and I'll say it here. When you get a chance to go to, especially STLV, and I know that culture, but if you can go to any standalone convention just for one franchise, and the larger it is, the chances are that there'll be all kinds of off-the-grid events that are fun. Some of them put on by some of the fan groups, some of them by some of the companies, licensees, if that's the nature of the beast. Some of them combo events like the famously infamous Fan Sets and our friends at Trek Geeks. So Lou and John at Fan Sets and their families, and Bill and Dan at Trek Geeks, a surprise in a new place, and a couple of hiccups along the way. But what didn't happen with a few hiccups along the way this weekend? The upshot was that everybody had a great time. Gaze in Space, Lambda Quadrant, so many groups. Our little we had about 12, 13 in our Portal 47 live dive. Dave joined us for that. Andy was going to, but she did 5 years ago. They got into a logistical hassle, couldn't make it, but it was fine because my goodness, the best news of all is, and what was a little bit annoying was, for all the space learning we were making, it'll be back at the Rio next year, thank God. And whatever you think of the Rio, I think a lot of people realize that be careful what you wish for, you may get it. Some folks who have not been happy with I think most people are fine with the convention facilities. A lot of people weren't happy with the rooms, and maybe the rooms needing updating. Well, that's why we weren't there this year, because the Rio is renovating hotel rooms. So let's see how that goes for next year. But even so, people learning the ins and outs of Bally's and where things are, we made it. We did it. We got through. I was sharing the booth with Terrace Cassidy, he and his wife, Christine. We were promoting everything Trekland, obviously, Portal 47 and Trek Files and Tuesdays Live here, and my day treks, but also our big, you've heard me talk about it every week, and we'll start talking about it more and more, and you'll be hearing about it some of your favorite news sites and web places, podcasts. The big West Coast Away mission in next July. It'll be 10 days, the biggest thing. We haven't done a big tour since 2016, but it'll be the biggest ever. And hopefully having at least one actor or behind the scenes person with us every day. So it's the biggest one yet. Start saving your pennies. You can go get the link on my page or go right to Geek Nation Tours. And you can see what else Terrace does. It's not Star Trek, which is the vast majority. So that's my skewed perspective on STLV. Of course, it's just great to see people and friends, and some of my friends and colleagues I see every day were thrown into a different situation, but all the folks from around the country who are there. And, STLV it takes a while to understand this. You're excited about going to a convention as a first timer. You're all about seeing your favorite actors, getting autographs, getting photo ops. All of that is spectacular. It's a lot of line standing. And sometimes things run long and they're frustrating. But eventually you get all of that, you get that, I don't want to say out of your system, but you experience all that, and now you're ready, as we always say, you're ready for the next level. You're ready. You've been around the block once or twice, and you're ready to start seeing what's a deeper dive, however you can. And here's a news headline. It's not always just from me and everything Trekland. There's lots of opportunities, thank goodness, these days, where that wasn't such the case 10, 15 years ago. But no, it was great to meet so many new folks. And I would always say, have the best time you can have. I don't know how you're not going to have a great time. Just remember, this is the fake STLV. When we get back to the Rio, it'll be the real thing and even more awesome. But never to rain on anybody's experience, because, as I always say, you never forget your first. So yeah. Bally's was not a disaster. We were always a little off kilter. You were always using 20 or 30% of your brain power just to compute how you were going to do your logistics between floors. And I wish I could have taken a poll to see how many folks in the main room, in the dealer's room, how many folks never even went up to the 26th floor, or even without a paper program, how many even knew it was up there? How many times the mention came through to go up? There was signage, yes. We were sharing the hotel. Since the facility space was really closer to the casino area and the front desk, unlike at the Rio, where once you enter that portal, all the convention space is down that you're within your own world. And the only time you mix with the outside world is when you're at the front bars and the registration in the front casino. Bally's was more of mixing. The minute you got off an elevator or walked down one hall, you were more immersed with the outside world, the outside smoking world, the outside non-masking world. So that was a little bit different. I do like the Rio for that. We're more segregated off. And of course, some years we've got 3/4 of the hotel anyway. And bottom line, I should say this too. So many folks were excited to be on the Strip in Vegas. I was never thrilled. A lot of people were excited about the food options, and we're close to the other casinos. And we were adjoining Paris, Planet Hollywood. New York wasn't too far away. I didn't care. If you go to STLV and you're thrilled about this is what I told my good friend Kayla at Trek Movie. If you're going to STLV and your thrill is all the food choices, maybe that's not the highest priority for most people. I mean, it's nice to go out, sure, but most of the time you just want to grab something and get on to your next thing without being exhausted, and hopefully without breaking the bank. But eventually we found out they're still recovering from the COVID too. There were a lot of slots closed around Bally's. But just being on the Strip was a lot more immediate to your typical Vegas tourist. The minute you stepped outside, you were really plunged into it. And the Rio is such a suburban mall off the Strip. We forget how nicely isolated we are in our own bubble. And if you do want to leave, you've got all this free parking, like mall parking. And you can pop in if you have a car, you can pop in your car and get away. Or if you've got an Uber, the Uber is not a headache to get to. It's not quite that way on the Strip. A little bit crazier. But some people thrive on that. Some people it drives them crazy. That was the thing. I will be glad to leave the Strip behind and get back to our old home, the Rio, next year. So if any of you are contemplating, if you haven't been to STLV in a while, if you are thinking about making your first trip, it's always there. And hey, I'm not getting anything from creation here. I don't get a kickback for who goes. But it is unlike, and no matter what you thought about creation over the years, if you're a veteran, it really does transcend all of that. STLV really is like no other. And a lot of folks will still be going to the Reed Pop official cons next year in Seattle in April. And there will be all the bells and whistles from officialdom at Paramount now. But yet some of that icing on the cake, some of those cherries on top, nobody noticed, really, because there's still so much to do at STLV. I do want you to check out, as we start promoting it, the West Coast Away mission next July. That's going to be exciting. You can go to LarryNemecek.com, see the links for that, as well as the Trekland Treks day tours that I'm going to offer all the folks who are cruising the day before and the day after. I need to add this, and I will be open for folks really staying a long time if you want to do a personal self-arranged Trekland trek that I would lead you on one of the adjacent days to that. I'll be happy to do that. That's coming up, and then the big away days mission. Hey, here's where I, of course, have to thank all of our Patreon folk and our TTL club. Of course, we've got Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Keith Rombach, Justin Porteous, Blaze K, Nathaniel Robinson, Andrew Jazimski, and Pranakasha Productions. With our live wires, Rusty Harold, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hoensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, and Casey Shafsky. Very easy to be a Patreon. It's just $5 and $10 a month. I'd love for you to help us out if you can. If not, no worries. But if you are able to do that, I keep it low, and I keep it very low key on purpose, because we have a lot of other ways to jump in across Trekland, Portal 47. Anyway, join the Patreon if you can. We're right here at the end of the month. They'll be doing it in a couple of days, so you can still get on today and help us out. Again, $5, $10 a month. Other than that, Trek Files will be back next week with our 9th season premiere with Andy Richardson, Kindred, Andrea. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to hear that. And I can't wait for you to hear how squeeful I was to be recording live and have Jessica and John and us all in there sharing a mic. I can't wait to post some of the video for that. It was a ton of fun. And of course, Andy was amazing. And yeah, that's where we are, folks. If you are watching us later on YouTube, try to join in the live show and join in with the chat. It's awesome. So with that, folks, I will just leave you for now with stay healthy, do all the things. We're going to see how many hot spots we had coming out of STLV. Stay woke. Check your sources, please. It's going to get crazy. It already is. And yes, trek well, everybody.